Disgusting, dirty, smelly, and even painful to look at. But enough about me. The medieval peasant was depicted as covered in mud and not had a bath in around 4 years. In the film Monty Python and the Holy Grail, 2 bystanders know who King Arthur is because he isn't covered in shit.
Who's that then? I don't know. Must be a king. Why? He hasn't got shit all over him.
The idea that medieval people were filthy is not at all factual, but it's not helped by real-world examples. In the late 15th century, Queen Isabella of Spain bragged that she had only bathed twice in her whole life, on the day she was born and on the day she married Ferdinand of Aragon. Lucky man. King James I of England bore a great aversion to water and reportedly never bathed. A court lady once complained that she and her friends got lousy by sitting in a councillor's chamber that James frequented. The king didn't even wash his hands before eating. His lover, the Duke of Buckingham, wrote in one letter to the king, "So craving your blessings, I kiss your dirty hands." Living without modern day electricity and plumbing would make it hard for the medieval people to keep up with today's hygiene standards, but that does not mean they were keen to be covered in shit and smell like goat's feet. But how was hygiene seen in the medieval period? Let's go find out. But before we do, make sure you smash that like button. Harden Henry VIII smashed his 6 wives on his wedding day. And if you haven't subscribed yet, why not give the subscribe button a little tickle? It really helps the channel grow. Anyway, back to medieval hygiene. In the Middle Ages, there was a different concept between the link between cleanliness and health. They believed it was the smell that was causing the spread of disease. The importance of soap was recognised in the Middle Ages, and references in England began to appear around the year 1000. Referring to 11th century traditions, chronicler John of Wallingford said that the Danish immigrants bathed every Sunday. He accused them of carrying out this strange practice alongside combing their hair and changing their clothes frequently to seduce the English woman. Bastards. Medieval doctors were enthusiastic about the benefits of bathing. They thought that bathing could prevent and cure illness. However, as running water was very rare, and considering it took such physical effort to get one bucket from the well or a nearby water source, it is perhaps not surprising that taking a bath every day was not as feasible to every person. Baths were seen as a luxury due to the cost to heat the water, and for those who had a bath, it was usually a wooden half barrel or tub. A lord might have a padded bath for extra comfort, and he usually travelled with one, such was the uncertainty of finding a bath on one's travels. The vast majority of people, though, would have made do of a quick swill using a basin of cold water, but it was common practice for just about everyone to wash their hands and face in the morning. An early wash was also desirable because fleas and lice were common, and rarely changed straw bedding was a paradise for rats and vermin, among other things. As 80% of the population did physically demanding jobs working the land, it is likely that some sort of washing was done on a daily basis. During the summer, many people did wash in the rivers, lakes and ponds, but we mostly know this due to the coroner's records, with numerous cases of death by drowning. One evening in April 1269, 12-year-old John White took off his clothes and entered a certain stream to bath, but he was drowned by misadventure because he wasn't wearing his armbands. Medical advice also suggested that as well as washing their bodies, people should wash their hair because it was a form of excrement produced from the waste products of digestion. Consequently, hair should be washed at least once every 3 weeks. This opened the pores in the head, releasing bad vapours from the body. Hair was cleaned with water, sometimes mixed with ash and herbs, to make it shiny and sweet smelling. Daily combing was also important and was sometimes combined with the sprinkling of special powders. Medieval people were also well aware of the importance of good dental hygiene. They were advised to rinse their teeth with water on waking to wash off any mucus that had built up overnight. Gilbert the Englishman, a 13th century doctor, suggested rubbing teeth with powders made from herbs such as mint or marjoram, although he cautioned against using hot spices which would make the teeth rot. He also advised patients to dry their teeth after eating with a dry linen cloth so that no food sticks to them and there would be no putrid matter among the teeth to make them rotten. But we all know from the medieval medical practices we have to take all the doctor's advice with a pinch of salt. It may not be that good. Washing of clothes was also common. Typically, this was woman's work. In the words of a popular late medieval verse, a woman is a worthy thing, they do the wash and they do the wring. Clothes could be washed in a tub, often with stale urine or wood ash added to the water, and trampled underfoot or beaten with a wooden bat until clean. But many women did their washing in rivers, streams and larger rivers. Similarly to bathing in the rivers and lakes, the laundry could be extremely dangerous. In the 15th century of Paris, the nurses of Hotel Deux waded in the mud of the scene, quite frozen up to their knees to wash their patients' sheets. Around the same time, an English teenager died when washing his socks in a pit one Friday after work as he fell in and drowned, another person not wearing their armbands. So a lot of people in the Middle Ages did make an active effort to increase their hygiene levels, as they knew the risk between bad hygiene and uncleanliness to disease. Only one section of medieval society actively embraced poor personal hygiene, including lice as a way of life: the extremely religious. As we discussed earlier, Queen Isabella claimed to have only bathed twice in her life. Her avoidance of bathing should be understood with the context of a strong Christian tradition. It did not reflect the social norms, but rather the efforts of an extremely devout woman not to overindulge her body. For medieval Christians, washing oneself could be seen as evidence of excessive worldliness. The Italian mystique Catherine of Siena often wept as she recalled how as a teenager she had been persuaded to wash her face and comb her hair more often in order to attract suitors. Horrible life. Despite her confessor's reassurances, she remained convinced that she had committed a mortal sin by obeying her mother's wishes rather than prioritising her faith. A handful of saints went further still and embraced filth as a form of asceticism. It wouldn't be one of my videos if I couldn't mispronounce a word. That's your mispronounced word for today. That is, a behaviour that caused suffering to the individual and thus both demonstrated and deepened his or her commitment with God. Their approach to personal hygiene was not just negligent, but deliberately harmful. For example, St. Margaret of Hungary refused to wash her hair so that she would be tormented by lice. After Thomas Becket was murdered in his cathedral in 1170, the monks who prepared his body found that his underclothes were swarming with minute fleas and lices, which they interpreted as a form of martyrdom. The bishop's willingness to embrace such an unhygienic lifestyle was deeply impressive to medieval Christians because it was atypical and because his contemporaries, including the very poor, found it as repulsive as we do. So most medieval people probably were extremely dirty by today's standards. They didn't have their Hugo Boss. They couldn't use the river as a power shower. But it was not for their desire to be that dirty. They would just be like us. They would want to be clean. They wouldn't want to be extremely filthy because they knew of the risks that came with the filthiness, the spread of disease and the illnesses. One of these such illnesses in the medieval time that spread like wildfire is the Black Death. I won't go into too much detail on it, but it spread extremely quickly across medieval Europe, mainly because due to their lower hygienic standards than today, and also the lack of understanding of how this disease spread. Because of this lack of understanding and ineffective quarantine measures, the disease spread from town to town without the medieval people knowing how it was spread, so it was impossible to stop it. So there wraps up the video on were the people in the Middle Ages extremely dirty. They weren't. They tried to be as clean as possible, but the stereotype is that they're extremely dirty. They knew the risk around being unclean, so they tried to keep as clean as possible, and just because they didn't have today's hygiene standards, we would look back and think they're extremely dirty. But I imagine in about 1,000 years, the people in 3000 would look back on us and think those guys were absolutely filthy and disgusting for what they done today. Maybe. So I hope you have all enjoyed the video. I hope you have learned something about the medieval hygiene standards today. So next time you see a medieval peasant walking around in the real world, don't just accuse them of being filthy, because maybe, just maybe, it's not their fault. I hope you all enjoyed. Make sure you do subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure you do leave a bigger than Henry VIII like. See you later. Peace. Medieval Hugo Boss. Now containing cow shit, as well as goat shit, as well as sheep shit, as well as ox shit, as well as king shit, as well as queen shit, as well as shit. More shit, just put shit in it. That's medieval. We're going back in time and we're selling Hugo Boss. Did you know that Hugo Boss designed uniforms for the Nazi SS warriors in World War II? That's why they all look like something out of a fashion shoot. Because Hugo Boss designed their uniforms. Fun facts.